Welcome to the EntreEd Talk podcast. We are your hosts, Toy Hirschman and
Laura McCall.
Join us as we dive into incredible stories from inspiring entrepreneurs around the world.
Whether you are an educator looking for ideas to engage students, a new learner, or someone who wants to be inspired, our guest journeys and their ideas will give you resources to create value and take your own leap into entrepreneurship.
We are so looking forward to sharing our message with you.
And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the EntreEd Talk podcast on whatever platform you listen.
So hello, everyone, and welcome to the EntreEd Talk podcast. I'm so delighted to have with me today Stephanie Thomas. Stephanie Thomas pursued her master's in business education in 2016, both from Middle Tennessee State University. She started her teaching career with a local nonprofit in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Doors of Hope. She was the director there of a pre-release program and taught inside both county jails to the female population. She taught classes from job readiness to cognitive restructuring. That is so excited to dig into that. After starting her own family, Stephanie decided to make the change to public education. She currently teaches in Williamson County at the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, teaching the UnCharted Learning Curriculum, or the UnCharted folks are friends of ours, so we're really excited. Thank you so much for being here today, Stephanie. I'm so glad to meet you and be able to talk with you this morning.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
This will be really fun. So, before we dive into all the things that you're doing, can you share a little more about how you got to where you are today, kind of your career life journey, if you will?
Yeah, my family moved a whole lot growing up. So I'm actually Canadian. So we moved to the States when I was in 5th grade, and then I did high school in Tennessee. And so then I went to Middle Tennessee for undergrad. And then after undergrad, I did some sales. I sold luxury apartments downtown Nashville, and then just decided that I wanted to go and get my master's in education. And I really thought that I was going to do like training and development for corporations, and do more so adult training or adult education. And so in my master's, I had to do an internship. And I wrote a huge research paper about the education within prison systems. And what I found out was that there was a lot for male populations and not a lot for females. And so I actually started looking into our community, and we had the Doors of Hope nonprofit. And what they really specialized in was the post-release. So I interviewed with them to do my internship there. And then while I was interning, we had this opportunity to do a pre-release and be really inside of the jails, doing kind of like a small mock-up of a therapeutic community, not a complete therapeutic community, but we were kind of based off of that in one of the county jails. And then we got into the other one as well. And so from my internship, it just kind of turned into a full-time job once I graduated. And then with that, of course, it's a very emotionally tolling job. And then starting a family, I was a lot of times bringing work home and just emotions from that and hearing people's stories every day. I definitely love it and I have a heart for it, but I had to take a step away, and I still wanted to be in education. And really randomly, my husband actually found this position online for Williamson County, and it talked about teaching from all 10 of the high schools, and it's a very unique program, teaching this unique curriculum, and very non-school environment. And I was so intrigued with it, and so I applied, never thinking that I would get a call, because I was just one application, I'm sure, of many. And then Kari Miller, who was our former director, actually came and saw me teach a lesson in the jails, and then I was offered the job. And now I'm here, and we're in our 2nd year at the EIC.
That is so cool.
Yes.
How did you think your experience in the jail system has helped you what you're doing now?
Yeah, I know, especially from what Kari said she was looking for, was a non-traditional teacher, because our space is a old, like, kind of warehouse style, like it's fully open concept, it's really loud. We have people coming in and out all the time. And so she was looking for someone who didn't have traditional classroom experience, but still had that experience of teaching. And I think that that's one of the things that helped me out a lot, because I'm very good with the flow, but also every day looks so different. And I think that's also helped a whole lot this year, because everything's different in 2020. And so, yeah. And so that, I think, has really helped me. And just, I think a lot of the population that I used to teach, because most of them had drug abuse in their past, and a lot of times when you start using drugs, your mental state kind of stays at that age. It's harder for you to mature if you become a user consistently. So a lot of the clients that I have were still kind of in a teenage frame of mind. So even though I was teaching older people from the ages of 18 to in their 60s, I was, in a lot of sense, teaching the same kind of mental state as high school students.
Wow. That's I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I did not know that before my previous job as well. I had to do a whole lot of research to just gain way more knowledge, to be able to teach in the way that I wanted to.
I mean, you have to gain a lot of like empathy and really, really immerse yourself in. It's a whole different culture. That's so,
Yes. Yeah.
well, good for you. That's that had to be really, really difficult, and I mean,
Yeah.
rewarding as well. But wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So now transition to now. Can you tell us about the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, and a little bit about your, like, what a day looks like there? I know I can just from on the podcast, I can tell it's like really busy. It's awesome.
Yes, it is. So very open concept. So we have 5 classes a day. We actually start at 7 a.m. So we have a group of students that come, and we call it our 0 period, our cohort A. So they come before school even starts, because they have a loaded schedule. So they have to take it before school starts. And then we have all the way to our last class, cohort E, ends at 2:35. But these kids, so we're attached to Franklin High School. So we have Franklin High Schools students that are able to walk to us. And then we have students that are bused here throughout the day for their class time. And then we have student drivers who drive themselves here throughout class time. And it definitely creates a sense of independence for these students. And when they get here, we pair them up when we're building these teams at the beginning of the year. We do it based on personality, interest, and not interest in the same that we are exactly the same, but more so interest in that we like the same general ideas. We want to help the same type of people, or we want to go into the same type of field, but one is an IT person, one is a bubbly marketing person. So we try and create these teams, but the coolest thing that happens is a lot of our teams are mixed up within high schools. And so these students never knew each other before, because they could go to Brentwood, and then the other student goes to Ravenwood, which are rival high schools, and they would have never crossed paths unless it was on a sports field, and that they're not going to hang out and talk, right? So it is a really cool dynamic to see these students and grow with each other and really start their businesses together. And 3 months ago, they didn't even know anything about each other. So I think that's one of the coolest things that the EIC brings, is that uniqueness of getting students from all high schools and all different backgrounds and coming in here. And this is kind of like, they take a lot of ownership over here, because it's just theirs. It's unique, it's small. A lot of the UnCharted curriculum talks about like making the students feel like they're not in school. Like calling them entrepreneurs, that this is your business team. They're not students. You come here to work. And it's so much easier for us to create that feel because our students are actually leaving school. And when they get here, we have music playing, we have speakers everywhere. We have a fabrication lab upstairs, so we have all the technology that they need. And another cool thing that we've done, we partnered with the Franklin High coding and cybersecurity class. And so now each of these teams kind of have their like mini IT department.
Cool.
Yes, so we actually just started that this year and it's going really well. So that class will come down any time of day and they'll meet with their team when they know their team is here, and they have these awesome meetings, and then they go back to their class and work on the website or whatever it is that the students want their IT department to be doing.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yes.
You mentioned before about being a non-traditional background to become a teacher. Talk about, and that makes sense because you're doing a very non-traditional curriculum. Talk about what the curriculum looks like and what the students do in as part of that experience.
So we do both the incubator curriculum and the accelerator. So accelerator being the second year. So this first year, when they're in incubator, it's all about learning the process. So they start from square one, creating this bug list of things that they are annoyed with and things that they want to problem solve, all the way to a final pitch, which unfortunately we weren't able to do last year. So hopefully this year is our first full year. But we did get to do so in the middle, you have this minimum viable product pitch. So they get to do that formal pitch and everyone gets to do it. They get a little bit of money and that sets them up to build their website, build a prototype, whatever that minimum viable product is for them. And then our plans for the final pitch would be 1 or 2 teams per class, per cohort, will be involved in that final pitch to receive even more funding. But the one thing that we stress so much within the incubator students is failing is good, pivoting is a-okay. And it's always the first pivot that's really hard for students because they think, oh my God, I'm going to have to go back and do all this work for a new idea. Let's just stick with this one, even though we don't like it anymore and all this stuff. And then once they do it and they realize that all the stuff that they just did, they can do it really fast with their new idea. We get so much better businesses out of that. And having the students, we get a lot of feedback from the students saying they like it because it's their time to be independent and have this free thinking and do what they want to do. You're not doing what I told you to do or any other teacher told you to do. But that at the same time, that's hard for students because they're like, wait, so do we need to turn this in? Is this a grade? Is this? And I'm like, well, this is your business. And so you're doing it for you and your business. And that is a really hard thing for certain students to make the transition to, and then really easy for other students. And they're like, yes, this is awesome. I can do what I want to do. So it's a very cool dynamic with the incubator curriculum because it really gives a good base for business, and especially if they go into business in college. I truly believe that it covers so much from the finance to the legal and to all this that going into a freshman business class at any university, they're like, oh, I actually know this. So I think that's one of the greatest things that incubator does is it takes this really hard concepts that corporations spend years and years working on, and puts it into this high school level and makes it fun for students and creative.
I love that. I had the experience of students. I was in career tech ed, which is kind of the same. We had students busing in and students from different schools. But I always found it interesting that generally the students that were more academically entrenched, and used to that cadence of learn it, test it, move, learn it, test it, move, they have the hardest time with kind of this experiential learning and when's my test? What do I, and
Right.
it's really interesting when you see someone in that situation, and to kind of move them out of that mindset, because
Yes.
when they do feel like they're free to do whatever and to make it their own, I mean, I think that's when the biggest chunk of learning happens, is when they get like, this is for me, and they're going to be so motivated. I bet you have no discipline problems there.
Hardly any, honestly, hardly any. Especially as the years go by, we feel like we'll get less and less, because it'll be really known throughout the county, like what the EIC is and what you do when you get here. And so it's a really fun place. And the kids have fun here. And so, and we try to make it not like school as much as possible. So, like we've had kids like Postmate stuff and get food and bring food here. And they just like take so much ownership, like I said before, over this place. And it's really cool to see.
That's amazing. I want to go.
Yes. And I always say, I'm so jealous of you guys. Why didn't I have this in high school?
I had nothing like that.
Right.
So back to kind of the traditional thing, because you are in school. How do you assess, or even assign? Do you assign grades, or how do you assess this?
Yeah. So a lot of the daily grades are more so like participation grades. So they have like the little assignments here and there. And those are all pretty much participation. Like if they get it done, they turn it in on time, you're most likely going to get 100 on it. And if you didn't do it right, then I will pull you aside and like, we'll work on it together to where you did understand the concept. And usually the times when that happens is when we get into the finance and you're working on the spreadsheet and plugging in numbers, because that's so new to a lot of the students. And then we do a professionalism grade. So every unit, you also have a professionalism grade. And that's just like making sure, because they all have mentors that are within the industry, adult mentors from around Williamson County. And so making sure that they're communicating with them on our platform, Schoology, that you're coming here on time, that you're participating in your team, like you're not the slacker on the team. And just general business professionalism stuff, like the soft skills is what comes into play with that professionalism grade. And then our tests are our unit share back. So at the end of every unit, they have to get up and do a presentation. And the reason why I do this is because it really helps them prepare for that MVP pitch and the final pitch. So getting up and doing this presentation and giving your elevator pitch and all this is muscle memory for them at that point. So that's like our test. But so what they do, they get up there, they give their elevator pitch, they have a well done slideshow, and they go through what they learned and what they created during that unit.
That's neat. I know I asked that question because we have a lot of entrepreneurial educators and also educators from a variety of different content areas that are trying to build in entrepreneurship into their courses, like an English language arts course. What can you do? And so a lot of times that's the question, like, well, how do you assess test an entrepreneurial mindset? Always the tricky question. And speaking of, though, to some of those educators right now that are dealing with this, try not to date the podcast, but I think we're going to be in pandemic for a little while longer. So how can you explain a little bit how you deal with the fact that you have schools that you have teams, and some of the kids are virtual on a virtual team, and some might be there in person and with a virtual team. Like, how can you share about what that looks like?
So I do a lot of Zoom. Zoom is my best friend. I like to claim that I'm a Zoom expert at this point. So what we do, we have one standing Zoom link for the EIC completely. So all of the mentors have it, all of the students have it. So whether you're quarantined or not, you have access to the same Zoom link, and it'll be the same throughout the year. because the students get so many different Zoom links, and I just wanted to make it as simple as possible. So then once they're on there, I put them in breakout rooms with their teams. And that's the most important. So like this last class is made up of mainly 3 high schools. And 2 of those 3 are closed and their students are all virtual. And so then we have one of the high schools here. And so even if you're here, you get on Zoom and I put you in a breakout room with your partners that are gone. And also, so I have a co-teacher, Chris Cummings, and I don't know how I would have done this last year. So thank goodness it didn't happen when it was just me. But so Chris Cummings and I, we kind of split up the duties. So like if we have to do a little bit of a lecture, one of us will take the in-person and then the other one will do all the Zoom students. And so we both do the same tiny lecture. We try not to do a lot of lectures, but of course it has to happen at some times. And then when it's time to do the activity for the day, then we bring everybody back together and then put them in the breakout rooms and pop in and out and get their assignments done that way. We also use Google Drive and Schoology. So everything they do, they just share it with us through Google Drive.
Cool. I know a lot of people are feeling that pinch right now, but I'm so glad that you said to keep it simple, like one Zoom.
Yes.
I'm every day, like I'm with my own children. Like, where are we going?
Yes, I know. And they get so like used to different Zooms being in different places with other teachers. And I'm like, okay, this is how we're going to do it for the whole year. This is where it's going to be. And of course you still have some people that are like, wait, where is it? I'm like, it's the same place as it's been. But that's the one thing that I try and do this year is try and make it as simple as possible, because there is so much going on in every single one of these kids' lives that who knows what it is. And just school alone is stressful for all of these kids, especially our juniors and seniors that are preparing for college, and then seniors making their decisions on colleges. It's a lot for them.
Yeah, I feel so bad for these kids. I'm like, because I guess I'm blessed at this point because it's I'm dealing with elementary, which is still still very interesting.
That's tough.
Be a senior right now or junior, like facing like unknown of
right.
Am I gonna graduate? Am I
gonna
go to prom? Am I gonna,
I know. Yeah.
Sad. Virtual Zoom prom.
Yeah.
You go into a breakout room and dance with your date. I don't know. This is not okay.
No, it's just not the same high school experience that they watched the years before them get.
Yeah, I just feel so bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, so do you have any fun stories of either a business that was launched or just something that you've seen that you could share with our audience in your journey for the last couple of years?
So we have 2 groups that are in Excel, so our second year. They're kind of like our shining stars right now. One of them is 2 girls. They started off last year doing incubator, and they were doing this trail mix. They wanted to like make your own trail mix, sell it at the farmer's market. They were having glass jars, and if you brought your jar back, then you got a discount. But they had all these cute little stuff. And their mentor was the owner of one of the farmers markets here locally. And so they had it all planned out. And then when they came back, they're like, I don't think we should do this. Like, who wants to make trail mix at a farmer's market during a pandemic? Like, we just don't think this is a good idea. So they pivoted, and they just pivoted in August, and they were doing a tremendous job. So they decided to do a nonprofit called Volunteens. And what they're doing, they created a website, and they are connecting local nonprofits within Williamson County to high school students, because both of them are seniors. And what they faced, they both had to get volunteer hours and for scholarships, for all kinds of different things. And they had a hard time figuring out where to do those. And so the problem that they're solving is that it's the one centralized location where the nonprofits can put in their info, and they have this ongoing calendar, and a nonprofit can say on November 7th, we need 6 volunteers to come and do this Habitat for Humanity house. And then high school students can go on there and be like, oh, I need 3 hours left, I could go and do this. And so they can click right there, and it takes them to the nonprofit's website, and they can go ahead and sign up. So it's just a centralized location for nonprofits to get the volunteers that they need, and for high school students to get the hours that they need.
What a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's a very good
I don't
idea.
have that here because I know service learning hours is always a big challenge.
Yes.
Especially now.
yes.
Volunteered
Especially.
something on Zoom, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So they are doing really well with that. And then we have another group, and they are doing a mental health box, kind of like a subscription box, like FabFitFun style, but it's all geared towards mental health, and really specifically for teenagers. So they're in the process of like interviewing psychologists, because they want a lot of psychologist recommendation stuff in this box. And then they'll have a general, it's called Above Blue. And then they want to have this general box, it's called Bliss Box. They'll have like journals and bath bombs and just your typical stuff to make you feel good for your mental health, just kind of relaxation. But then they want to do specific boxes for people, like a grief box or depression, and very specific. And that's where they want to get a lot of help from the psychologist side of it. And one of the girls on the team, she was talking about this way, like a lot of people don't want to go to counseling, or they feel ashamed and that kind of stuff. And if they knew about this, it could get shipped to their house, and it could get them started in the right process of dealing with a mental health issue that they're going through. And so they're doing that, and it might be subscription possibly at some time, but also what their idea is not only for individuals to be able to buy it, but to put it into school, so a counselor can have a box, and if a student needs it, they can give it to them, or partner with the local hospitals and do like a nurse center box. So nurses can have it, and the hospital can give it to all of their nurses, and just do different avenues like that.
I love that. That makes me want to cry a little bit. Like,
I know.
That's a big idea. Like
yes.
It's amazing what happens when you just get out of kids' way. And like,
exactly.
I mean, that's just, I got chills. Like that's
yes.
such a huge issue right now. And wow, that's amazing.
Yes, really, they're special kids. They're really good. And one's a senior and one's a junior.
That's just amazing. Now, curious, how do you find the mentors, or do the students kind of come up with an idea and then find it? Like, how does that process work?
So we actually find the mentors first. My co-teacher, Chris Cummings, this is his first year teaching, and he is from the industry. And he is a part of like tons of the chambers and different organizations within the community. And so he has a huge pool of people. And then before Kari Miller, she recruited a bunch of the mentors. We reach out, we have a lot of corporate head offices here. So like Nissan's here, Tractor Supply's here. And so what they did is reach out to a lot of those big corporations, and we've gotten partnerships from them and got mentors from them. And a lot of it now is word of mouth, because we have these mentors coming in, and they're so amazed by these students. And I think, because a lot of times, and it happens with every generation, you look at high school students and you're like, they're just worried about TikTok and Snapchat and blah, 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 blah. And then when you get these adults into the doors and have these open conversations with students and see their brain work, then they go back to their office and share what they experience and what their team's doing. And then we've just gotten more and more that way.
Wow. Yeah, it really is. I mean, once you get, I guess, far enough away from being a teenager, when you weren't a teenager with TikTok and Snapchat,
right?
Like, those kids,
Yes, yeah.
So do the students, like, do the mentors always mentor students that are doing something kind of in their realm, like the trail mix in the farmers market, or do they have, or is it all over the place?
It's a little bit of both. So what we do, once the students like really nail down someone, if they could have a mentor, but if the mentor is like, can we add someone? Sometimes we go out into the community and try to find someone that's very specific to what they're doing. But what we actually do for the mentor match days is all the students have to give their elevator pitch. And then the mentors do the same. And then the students pick their top 3 favorite mentors that they heard from, and the mentors pick their top 3 favorite groups. And then I play matchmaker and match them all up. It kind of like a sorority recruitment, honestly. That's where I got the idea from, doing it that way. And it really works out well, because what it was surprising is because I initially, if I was just doing it, I would have just paired up mentors based on their resume to close enough to what a group's doing. And what I found when I gave it to the mentors as like, which is your top 3 favorite, just based on the students' elevator pitches, is a lot of them wanted to do something outside of their field, because that's their language every day, all day long. And they understand that you're really here just helping the students through the process and helping them network and learning how to talk to an adult and have those good conversations. So I found that a lot of mentors wanted to get out of maybe their strict, if it's a finance person, it would be great to be with a finance group, but then they're ended up with like a makeup subscription group and loving it, because it's just getting yourself outside the box. But every group is going to need to know about the laws and the finance and all that stuff.
Love that. Probably there's a big personality component too. Like if they thrive with a specific group of kids, I would probably do that too. I would probably want to get out of my comfort zone and I'd probably pick the makeup subscription box.
Yes.
Awesome. Like I just let them put makeup on me all day.
Right? I'll be your model. Go for it.
Here at EntreEd, we are continually searching for new ways to support you and your entrepreneurial programming, initiatives, and innovations by offering a rich array of professional development options, resources, events, and networking opportunities. EntreEd is excited to now offer all of those fundamentals in one place, introducing our new membership portal to help launch your career. There are both individual and school memberships available. Your students will thank you. Join the community today at entreed.org/membership.
What advice might you give to educators who are there, because you're in a really unique situation. So there are a lot of educators that are trying to set up kind of elements of what you're doing, because you have full scale situation, but like maybe in a classroom, or in like, if they're in blocks or something, what advice would you give to a teacher to just get started? How could I bring entrepreneurship into my class in an experiential way?
I think one thing is, don't be afraid to change. I find that a lot of people are like so stuck in their way that they've done it for a long time, that like be open to change and doing it a different way. And also be open to the kids almost controlling the classroom in a structured, good way. But be open to hearing the kids and learning from the kids. Like I will say all the time, I am not the smartest person in this room, and I learned so much. And I think a lot of times there's people that when you feel like you're supposed to be the teacher and you're supposed to know everything, you kind of feel like you need to be that and you get in that train of thought. But so many times I learned, like, the students will ask me a question. I'm like, I don't know. Let's figure it out together and let's get on Google and learn. And it really creates a good dynamic between the students and I, because you become almost like a coworker with the students. And the more you treat them as a mature adult, the more that's what you get out of them.
That is so awesome. I think for me with entrepreneurship, that was one of the most empowering things that I found, but it was uncomfortable at first because I did teach in a traditional setting, and then like allowing the students to have that freedom. It's a little bit scary at first.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
If you're used to this, the more structured traditional school, but it is so incredible what you get out of them when they know you respect them and their opinions and their values.
Yes.
Plus, it's my favorite thing to go, I don't know.
Figure it out. I tell them on the first time, like, if you have a question, you need to ask 3 before me. And one of those 3 can be Google.
I like that.
Learn how to network. And sometimes Google's your networking friend.
So that is so true, that it's just a totally different mindset, but so much fun. When we talk to teachers all the time, that's what we're like, it's going to be like what you said with the kids. It's that first pivot for teachers too. It can be a little bit, shocking, but it just brings so much more to the students. And I love the fact that you mentioned about learning from them and listening to them, because that's something that I know students really appreciate, when they know that their teachers and instructors and mentors are legitimately hearing what they say and what their feedback is.
Right.
Feedback that helps improve things too. It's
absolutely. Yeah. And there, a lot of times they get in this mindset that adults just don't listen to them or don't care what they have to say, and changing that. A lot of that also came from teaching in the jails, because if you don't have trust, then no one's going to listen to you. And so I had to build trust within a very, very small amount of time with my old clients. And I took that same thought process into the classroom, even though it's a little bit different when you're in a traditional school, because they automatically have to have respect for you because they're in high school. They know the drill. You go into class, this is your teacher, you're going to listen. Where when I was working in the jails, I mean, they could do whatever they want. If they wanted to yell at me, they could yell at me. If they didn't want to do anything, they didn't have to do anything. And so building that trust first thing, I think it was really powerful, mainly because what you want the students to get out of it and what you want them to put into it is a lot easier once you have that open line of communication and that open line of trust.
That's awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to end this. This has been so much fun. I could talk to you for like another hour, but I know you have lots coming in. And apparently I have a cleaning crew coming into my house.
I guess.
The audience just heard about that. So, but how can, before we close, how can folks reach out to you if they want to learn more about the Innovation Center, if they want to learn more about the curriculum or just about you in general?
Absolutely. So my email is stephanie.thomas, and it's Stephanie, STEPHANIE.Thomas, THOMAS @WCS.edu.
Well, this has been so much fun, Stephanie. I really appreciate your time today, and I know our audience will appreciate hearing from you as well.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thanks so much.